Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation. With us today is Paul Nnaoji, the founder and CTO of AskAGuru, a pioneering platform designed to give people a space to celebrate what they love and share their passions with the world, which might be something we all need a little bit more of today. Paul's journey is one of determination, resilience, and vision. What started as a concept in his master's program has now become a thriving company, available on iOS, Android, and askaguru.com. Without funding, connections, or a roadmap, he turned an idea into reality, navigating the storms of entrepreneurship while fostering a culture of belief and achievement. In this episode, we'll explore Paul's entrepreneurial journey, the challenges of transforming ideas into reality, and what the future holds for AskAGuru as it continues to innovate in media curation and community engagement. Get ready for an inspiring conversation with a leader who truly believes in making the impossible possible. Paul, I'm really excited to dive into this. I love the concept of Ask a Guru, as we were talking about before the show, and it'll come up in the conversation. I'm really eager to dive in. We're really thrilled to have you on the show.
Thanks, JL, and hello to your audience. I'm so glad to be here.
So starting off with your journey, I'm curious, what inspired you to create Ask a Guru, and how did that idea first come to life?
Right on. Yeah, JL. I grew up, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and one of the things that I noticed when I was growing up is, in the apartment complex that I grew up in, a lot of my friends, they turned me on to some of the things that were the most impactful to me. So I remember going over to my neighbor's house, and I grew up listening to Michael Jackson in my household, like religiously. But when I went over to my buddy's house, I remember being turned on to hip hop. And that was the first time I got into Dr. Dre and Eminem. And for me, it was just like, it was so mind blowing. I got so addicted to that music, and I just fell in love with it. And then I remembered, how I got turned on to certain shows that I loved. So I didn't have HBO in my house, but every time I would go over to their house, they would have Band of Brothers. They would be watching Band of Brothers, and that turned out to be one of my favorite shows. And I just realized that, some of my favorite things, even my favorite movie, Pulp Fiction, that was recommended to me by my friends. And so I just realized that I have a deep appreciation for that discovery and how much of an impact that it's had on me. And I wanted to continue to have more of those experiences.
No, I think that's amazing. Maybe the most important question for the whole conversation here, what's your favorite Michael Jackson song?
Man, that's so hard. That's so hard. But do you remember the time?
Yeah.
That one? And
Yeah.
and the video is so great. They're just doing the Egyptian dance. If you haven't heard of that one and watch the video, definitely check it out. You will love it.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, we're bringing a guru to life on the podcast. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you
So,
have
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me like Billie Jean,
That's good.
some of the classics, so much there. It's funny. I have kids now, and every once in a while, one of them will be like, "Oh, I found this great new song, and it's Michael Jackson." And I'm like, hey, "Yeah, no, I've heard that one before." Kind of blows their mind.
Nice.
I love this concept of Ask a Guru. We were talking before the show, like I think this idea that you can connect to someone through a safer medium, learn more about them through the music they listen to, the books they read, the movies they watch, just it really hits at something, that's really core to me in like how do humans actually connect.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like you talked about this coming from your master's program and you gave this history. What was that question that guides you, that still guides you, that is kind of at the heart of everything you're doing with askaguru.com?
Yeah. Right on. That's a great question. So, JL, as you mentioned, I did my master's at the Berklee College of Music. And I just knew when I was graduating my bachelor's from St. Mary's, I knew that I wanted to do something creative. When I got into Berklee, I took the entrepreneurship program, and I remember it was on the first day of class, and my professor, Emilian Moyan, asked a question that, really just it birthed AskAGuru. And the question was, as now that, especially in digital formats, there's a lot more music and even different mediums like books and movies, as there becomes more scale, is there a good way of, getting to the good stuff? And I remember in a second, it just came to my mind that getting curation from peers that you trust their curation would be a great sieve and filter to get you the good stuff. And I remember once he asked that question, I gave that answer in like the next second. And right away, I thought of the name AskAGuru. And I remember it was kind of like, there was like 30 people in the class and everybody kind of had this collective gasp because it just felt right and it felt magical. And right then and there, I knew that AskAGuru had to be real and I was going to work on it no matter what.
I love that. How can you connect people so they can get to the good stuff, whatever that ends up being? And I think that's so central to how people innovate and move forward, like having the right challenge statement, the right question to guide them. It's a great first step, but it's obviously not the only first step. And I think something really fun to dig into with you is you mentioned that there was no roadmap, there was no funding or anything like that, but you still are successful and have continued to be successful. As you started that journey, not having these things that so many people say, oh, before I can even move, I have to have my roadmap. I have to have the funding. I have to have the connections. You had none of that. Like, what were the hurdles you faced? Like, what did it take to go from nothing to something?
Yeah, JL, that's a great question. For me, being in college, I didn't have any money. I had just gotten done with my bachelor's. And here I was taking my master's. So I was certainly, I had student loans, I had debt, but I figured there has to be a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. And that was the most important thing for me. It was just like, how could we, first of all, make this more real, immediately? And the first step was just like, how could we come up with a logo? How could we get T-shirts to pull this out, from this idea and make it more tangible and continuously get more excited about it? So that was the first step. Is I just needed to make it more concrete. I needed to see more of it in the real world. And once we had that, it was kind of like the momentum kept going, and it was just like, well, we don't have any money, but what do we have? Well, the passion alone to continue to think about what's the next step that we could do, whether it's talking to people, seeing if this is viable. But eventually it just became a matter of how can we prototype this in the digital format? Because we know that this is going to be something that people can connect to on the web, in their app. So what is the most basic iteration of that we can pull off? And, that was a journey in of itself. But eventually I just decided that learning to code was going to be the most direct way that we could continue to iterate. So right after I got done with my master's, I enrolled in a coding boot camp and taught myself how to code from scratch. And since then, I just continue to lay the bricks. And here we are today. We're available on all the platforms and at askaguru.com.
That's awesome. And there's a number of things that really resonate with me in what you're saying. Maybe the first one, though, is this idea of the way you started wasn't to just build an app. The way you started was like, we don't have money, we don't have a lot of time, we don't have a lot of things. Let's start with a logo. Let's start with some T-shirts. Like, how do we build some awareness? How do we understand if there's interest?
Yeah.
Right. And connect with people. I think that's really powerful. And you had a question or a statement you said, I'm trying to remember exactly how you said it. It is, we didn't have this. What we did have was passion.
Yeah.
Right. And I think sometimes people get so hung up on what they don't have, they forget to really consider what they do have and how they can move the ball forward.
Yeah.
And then I think the last thing is you have this really, whether it's purposeful or not, innovative approach of let's do all these small things to keep moving the ball forward, keep wayfinding along our path towards our vision, rather than trying to do any one big thing at a time. And I think I'm curious, as you had that path forward of small steps, how many of those small steps were failures and what did you learn from them?
Yeah, Jail, that's a good question. And I feel like I don't look at anything as a failure. I think of it as iteration and a version of what we're doing. So I remember the very first version of AskAGuru was literally just HTML and it played music and I was the only user. I clicked on it and it played the song and I was just like, this is the most amazing thing, you know? And so the way I look at it is there is no such thing as failure as long as you're seeing progress. And that was the main thing, is just continue to iterate, continue to get feedback. Like I remember I showed my brother and my friends and they were like, this is cool. Like, I'm glad that you're making progress. Now, like, get the styling to look a lot better because people love a good visual interface. And so I told myself, okay, well, we've got something that's certainly functional, but now we've got to make this look better. So we went through the whole redesign process. I got amazing designers. The next version in the designs looked amazing, and then we went down the path of implementing it, and that's the version that's on askaguru.com right now. And so that's always our approach: is make something, get feedback from the community, and let that continue to drive our innovation.
You kind of remind me of a quote from Nelson Mandela where he says, I never lose, I either win or learn.
Yeah.
I love that quote. I think it really speaks to me. Hopefully it speaks to you too. But I do like that idea that it's never a loss. It's never a failure. It's a learning opportunity.
Yes.
And then there's another quote that I think is Winston Churchill, and it goes something along the lines of success is moving from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm.
Yes.
Which I know that reintroduces the word failure, but I like the idea of if it doesn't work the way you hoped it would, all that means is now you know more about how to make it work next.
Right.
So
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as you were going through this, I mean, you make it sound like it was roses the whole way, and I'm sure that's not it. Maybe talk to us a little bit about a low point.
The startup journey and making something a reality is fundamentally, I think, a battle of your emotions and your morale. And you have to figure out how to look at the bright side. And there were many moments where it's like, you have these questions of, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And that's normal. But I think the main thing I continuously would ask myself when I felt like, man, is this thing going to happen? Is what is the most basic validation of what we're doing? So when I remember very early on in our journey, sometimes I would be down and then I would just wake up and there'd be one more new playlist on the app.
Yeah.
And just seeing that and then looking through the playlist and playing it and discovering one more new artist just totally re-energized. And I told myself, if I discover more music, books, movies, and TV shows that I like, even just one, and that has a deep impact on me, then it's totally worth it. And so what we're trying to do is just scale this up as much as we can, like take this to the nth degree. But if you, JL, discover one song, book, movie, or TV show, and that has an impact on you, then our job is done. So it was just about thinking, what is the most, basic thing that I could look at and realize that my efforts were worth it. And I was discovering more about myself, learning about the persistence that I had within me that I never knew existed. And just because of that, I realized, you know what, no matter what, this journey is refining me. I'm learning about myself. And you got to take the wins that you have in front of you. And if you keep marching in that direction, I think that you're going to see a big breakthrough. But it's all about reminding yourself that the process in of itself is a reward.
Well, I think it's important you talk about looking at the bright side. I think it's really easy for people to hear that and think, like toxic positivity, like the sky is never falling, nothing ever goes wrong. That's not it. But I do think it's a good way of saying, even when things aren't going the way you hope, you still have a choice about how you react. You still have a choice
Yeah.
about how you look at that, and having that growth mindset of, even at the worst, I'm still growing, I'm still learning, is a positive and powerful way to look at the journey. And I love that. Now, for me, that's a big insight. That's a big takeaway here. I'm curious for you, Paul, what do you hope our listeners take away from this conversation?
JL, I hope that your audience think to themselves, what is there something that I want to see a reality? You might have a good idea. You might have something that you want to build. And what I hope is that you embark on that journey and that you make it a reality, because you never know how big of an impact that will be. And I just hope that you realize that you can make it. You can do it. Being resourceful is the name of the game, and we live in a great time where I do think that there are by being resourceful, you can get a lot done. So I really hope that this is an inspiration to your listeners to say yes to the journey and to hold on to your will and to your vision and put one foot in front of the other, and you will be able to accomplish it.
I love that. I love that. It's never been easier to start. So take that first step. I love it. What's the best way for people to connect with you, Paul, and collaborate?
Yeah, you can follow us at AskAGuru app on Instagram and on X. And also be sure to follow us, subscribe to us at AskAGuru TV, where we have daily uploads that you're going to love. And also you can follow me on Instagram at @thedude__. And most importantly, download AskAGuru.
Yeah, there it is.
AskAGuru.com. We'd love to see what you post in terms of music, books, movies, and TV shows, and the world will reward you with amazing recommendations, and you'll make some great connections. And we look forward to seeing you.
Awesome. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time today. All these insights are fantastic. For everyone else who's joining us till the end, I want to say thank you to you as well. And I know you're probably already leaving a like and a recommendation and all that sort of stuff. But if you aren't, go ahead and consider doing that on wherever you're listening to the podcast. And then if you know anyone who needs a little bit of inspiration or might need a guru in their life, share this episode with them and introduce them to Paul. I can't imagine it will do anything but help. And then lastly, remember, go back through the episode, find that one actionable insight from today, apply it, and let us know how it goes, because we truly believe that be continually growing, continually improving is the way, to quote The Mandalorian. And again, thanks to everyone. Thank you, Paul. We'll see you all next time on Breakthrough Innovation.
Thanks, Yale.